This podcast was recorded on March 18th, 2020. このポッドキャストは2020年3月18日にレコードしました。Hey everybody, welcome to Less Stupid with Thomas Hiura, a show that's completely uncut, uncensored, and unbelievably excited to have another Asian on the show. Finally. Would you like to introduce yourself, my friend?
I'd be happy to, and thank you very much for having me here. This is a great opportunity to show that not only are people in this community people of color.
Hey!
But we're active.
Yeah.
We're here. We're not going away, and so
I like that.
Some of the most exciting parts about this new social media, about this new media that we can bring over the internet and the airwaves is that while it's not as filtered or polished or as pretty as some others, right? We can still hear those voices that are most important.
I like how I said we got Asians on the show, and you're like, it's not as pretty as other people.
Well, no, I mean the filtering, and I mean definitely. Like,
I know
there's a whitewashing and a lightening of skin tones on a lot of post-processing videos. Which is, I mean, you know, that's why I was a big fan of the Disorient Asian American Film Festival. That's one of the first spaces I was actually able to embrace my API identity. I
love it.
Wow, there's a lot of these tropes and reflections of societal bias and prejudice that I have internalized.
Yeah, absolutely.
And while I was trying to work through some of that stuff, right, it was just like, man, this is where I got most of it from. Oh, dominant culture.
We have been a marginalized group here in Oregon, in the U.S. since we came over here. Essentially, I came over here in 1995, but if I, had been here in the 40s and 50s, wouldn't have been the best. But hey, are we in a post-racial society, Matthew?
We can't ever be in a post-racial society as long as we don't have discussions about what race is, as opposed to people having to throw up, I'm not racist. Sure. And then there's so many other things that go along with that same vein. Oh, well, that person's nice, Okay. Well, they can still be racist, right?
Yeah.
And so there's way too much deflection right now.
Yeah.
And so talking about post-racism is ridiculous because thinking that we can deprogram all of that bias quick enough that is still centuries being built.
Sure.
I mean, it's still centuries being built, and so
it's being reified all the time. This is a question I'd love to ask you, and I haven't explicitly said this, but you're a fellow mayoral candidate, so this is exciting. It's funny, I introduced you as, hey, I've got an Asian on the show, instead of like, this motherfucker's running for mayor and wants to be the leader of the city of Eugene government. That's dope.
Oh, I think the feeling's mutual, sir.
Hey. All right. I love it too, because I'm only half too, and I still get that love, that full Asian love.
Well, I mean, it's neat, right? Like my boy.
Try to keep that close to your mouth.
Sorry, I mean, it's pretty neat. My boy, he definitely looks mixed, right? And while I don't want to go into it too much, I am very much identified as being Asian. And I'm not really, which is the funniest part, right?
Okay,
and so, I mean, the thing about adoptedness, And so that's why that idea of, but I am.
Okay.
Right?
That's why we have to, I talked with somebody, with Robert Patterson on the show about like, how can we identify if a person is white? Well, you should ask them. Self-identifying is essential if we're really trying to get at, what a person's identity is. But I also said, if you don't identify as white, you have to have a pretty damn good reason not to. Because I mean, like, sometimes there's a comedian who said, like, you ask a white person for what their racial background is, and they'll give you a math equation. It's like, oh, I'm 1/16, Scandinavian, like Norwegian, but then like, oh, like a quarter German Irish on my grandparents' side, my grandfather's side. So, yeah.
Yeah,
but race is a totally constructed thing.
Definitely a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
I mean, the construct of white, for instance. And the folks that are needing to take more pride in that vocally, as opposed to ones that dog whistle it from positions of power.
Okay.
So that way they couldn't really be called out for it, if that makes sense, right? Like, what? No, they didn't say that. But they said this, this, and this. That, I mean,
right.
Aristotle, y'all. He's someone that happened. right? That is still, this theory are still happening. And so
Yeah.
it's ridiculous that people don't have the ability to see through that, which is the problem of going immediately with judging by that label, which is why one of my main things is I don't want to ask people. One of the only ways I can see getting post-racial is by not engaging directly and confrontationally.
Okay.
Because I did that for a little bit, just vocally saying, "Hey, no, that's racist. You shouldn't be doing that."
Okay.
Did you really just what?
Okay.
And so it made me feel better for sure because it was like ridiculous instances, right? Like, oh my gosh. I mean, one fun one, right? Just recently, from a person in the community was saying like, "Yeah, well, you know, the Chinese will inherit the earth." And it's all like, oh, what? Why would you say that? You're like, well, the meek, right? The meek will inherit the earth.
Oh my gosh.
It's a verse, right? I'm like, what? Why are you calling the Chinese
I mean,
meek?
there's a lot of money in China.
Right, but I mean, with this connotation, because beyond that,
Yes.
after I'm asking, like, did you call China meek? Chinese people meek? He said,
these motherfuckers
yellow
have never
people,
seen a Bruce
the
Lee or
yellow
a Jet
race.
Li film.
the yellow race will inherit the earth.
Yeah.
Is what he brought it back to.
Ah.
Because that is the root of that.
Okay.
That got translated later to meek, right? And so
That's
biblical.
why we're talking Bible.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so this fella that's very proud of trumping his identity
okay.
around
Okay.
busts that out.
Okay.
And like I should have handled that a lot better, right?
Well, I do think that if you are looking to, there's kind of two different ways that you can confront racism and a person who are expressing racist ideas. One is to come from trying, and it's not always possible to come from such a place of love that it's really clear that, you know, you talked to me before, who started the podcast, about behavior and changing the behavior and changing the beliefs. And it's really rare that you can change someone's opinion by using the second option, which is maybe it's viewed as a righteous sort of love as well. But there's an element of like, I am just going to attack your side and I am morally righteous on this issue. And so you have to listen to me. And, you know, if it happens on Twitter, it's got that performance element too. You know, it's like, I'm going to get likes, I'm going to get retweets and shares for this performed opinion that maybe I do have, but I know it's going to be popular within my circle. And so I don't know that really pushes people to accept those beliefs more. I don't know. It's a vigorous debate, right? Because am I tone policing now? What do you
Not
think?
at all.
Okay.
As I went into this kind of hopefully bridging the idea that both responses and both actions, especially by classically marginalized and oppressed communities, are completely justified.
Okay.
Especially by them, by what they have felt. And so that's one thing I really want to push an acknowledgement of. What I mean about not having, if folk cannot have to be confrontational about it, getting to the root of racism as it has been enacted, as it has been indoctrinated century after century.
Yeah,
And that
racism is powerful.
Implicit
It persists.
bias. Well, implicit bias.
Of course.
And then that gets echoed through legislation that people are like, oh, yeah, well, actually, that does sound like a good idea because I hear this, and this about people that I never interact with. And that's very much a reason why, actually, if we can bring it back a moment, I'm running for mayor.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think you are too, so that way we can
I
try to
think I am.
engage the voices, right? Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to put any words in your mouth is my thing, right? I'm not going to say, his campaign is about...
You know, I'm running a
Yeah.
campaign where you've got these great stickers, and I don't know if I'll even be able to print stickers because I'm not even taking any donations, and my personal funds are very limited. If somebody gets on the ballot to challenge the incumbent mayor in the November ballot, I think that person should get our support, and I think that we should give money to them if they want money. We should volunteer. We should knock on doors if it's safe to at that point, you know. But that's just what I believe, and so I'm hoping that'll be me. But if it's you or one of the other 5 challengers, that would be exciting because I mean, come on, dude. I mean, look at the political establishment that exists here in Eugene. and look at the fact that the voter turnout for the two elections is much higher when the presidential candidates from both parties are on the ballot, right? May is a late primary, and there's a good chance that the primary is going to be sealed in terms of Biden or Bernie, by then. So we have a chance of having a tiny voter turnout in the race that ultimately decides who the mayor is. I personally wish, because for people who don't know, it's a top 2 primary in a nonpartisan race. So it's not like a D or R on the ballot, but they take the top 2 people in May and run them off in November. But that is only the case if nobody gets more than 50% of the vote in May. And that's what happened in 2016. So people look at the ballot and they think, what's going on? They only have one person and the option to write someone in, which of course could never win, theoretically. I can't think of any write-in campaign that's ever succeeded. So yeah, I mean, I just want people to have more of a choice. If we could amend the charter or something. Huh?
There were 5 candidates in 2016.
Yes.
Mike Clark, Scott Landfield, and so even
Stefan Streck, Bob Cassidy, and Lucy Vinnis.
And so yeah, definitely, because Lucy Vinnis did get that 50% threshold.
Yes, she got 52. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so
so it was locked up. And I feel like it's a disproportionately. This is why I talk about the establishment, right? And some people actually, who are a part of these groups that I've been peripherally a part of, they don't like this anti-establishment rhetoric because their perspective on it is like, yeah, we've been organized. We've been doing this work. So are you going to knock us because we are established in what we do and we have our mechanisms well in place? And it's like, that's not my intention. My intention is to expose and recognize how that creates an outgroup. That creates an outgroup, and the everyday average Eugenians, mostly working class folks, they're not involved and engaged in what's going on all these micro levels of politics because there's the federal, state, county, and city stuff. So who's really going to be paying that much attention to the city council meetings, blah, blah, blah. And I want to engage those people more. I like what you said about new media, etc. We jumped into race right away, which I think is great because I wish people were more comfortable talking about race.
We need to be, if there's any type of venue, to put our voices and our faces out there, because the majority is not the majority, as we've been told. And so, please, y'all, embrace that.
Yeah.
Run with it.
Swag. I still say swag. Deal with it. But the reason I mentioned we jumped straight into race is because I like to lead these... I like to lead these chats that I have with people by asking, what's a controversial opinion you have about anything? Of course, race is already seen as controversial, so I let it run for a while. But this could be about anything. I know that you have a long history of being involved in various political causes.
I can even go deeper into race if y'all would like. We can do it.
We can do it later. But if I know that people don't tune in for all that long. So I wanna let's go somewhere else. I'm a racist because I want us to not talk about race for more than 13 minutes. The controversial candidate Yook. What does he believe?
I mean, that's a weird place to put it. That kind of, I feel, discredits a lot of the discussions that need to happen.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of dismissiveness when folks try to bring up questions about what is considered normal, what is considered, what is established, what is establishment.
Okay.
And so anything that deflects from questioning and calling that out, I definitely feel only helps strengthen and entrench established ideas that I'm really hoping to change. And established sentiment and reactionary rhetoric that has been plaguing everything we need to do for each other. Because we all know it, right? I mean, like, when you talk to people, like, that same basic desire is there. And it's just hard for them to understand where each individual is coming from.
Okay.
And then to acknowledge what that took.
What I hear you saying is something I might push back on a little bit, because you said we all know it, right? Everybody's looking for, I don't know, that same push or something. And the thing that concerns me about society is it's becoming increasingly clear what other people don't believe or don't share in terms of my beliefs. Like, I know a lot of what you believe in, but I also, know that, you kind of equated like the American flag and the Confederate flag. When somebody's like flying a American flag on the back of a pickup truck, you basically said on Facebook that, that they wish that they were flying the Confederate flag or something. And so for me, I see that and I'm like, I don't agree, because historically those flags were opposed to each other and they do have very different meanings. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I think what I might agree with is that everybody wants escape from some of the same kinds of pain in the world. People tend to want what's best for their own families. They love their families. And we do end up in very different approaches of how to regulate on a policy level, or elect the right people, or just do the right things in the community that sustain what we think is good. There's a big socialism versus capitalism debate in the country right now. That wasn't really the case for a while because, some have said anybody running on the left is a socialist, which is just not true. Obama is pretty much a corporatist, in my opinion,
The left has definitely moved from the center. And not in the direction that
toward the center, or like, yeah.
Yeah, moved from the center to the right, sorry. Not even more towards the left. The corporatism that Biden brings, for instance, he was lauded as one of the most conservative Democrats in Congress. I don't want to go much into this just because it's a pretty sore subject for me. We really need to shape and change the discussion. And so, that aside, like, the thing about the idea of Biden and that compromise and then that doing this for America is something that I see a giant American flag being flown off the back of a truck, often in Glenwood or Springfield or West Eugene, right? That equates to that Confederate flag idea, because I am a patriot to the extent that I believe in America.
I'm a huge patriot.
I believe in our Articles of Freedom, the 3 founding documents of our nation. Post-Civil War, of course, because,
Sure. Are you including, the Constitution, the Declaration, and the Articles of Confederation as the third one, or the Bill of Rights? Okay.
The Bill of... Yeah, no, yeah. There were some good...
Which is part of the Constitution, but it is also a separate document.
Well, a separate document specifically. Sure. Those, and, if you're going to be talking about Constitution and founding of America, knowing those are the 3 founding articles, are pretty important, I think, before I can be all like, okay, let's talk about some amendments along the way and when they happened. And
Fair. Fair.
Not quite there yet, but
I like the story of the Articles of Confederation because people don't realize how much of a shit show that was. Well, they were like, we've got this new set of territories we're going to call a country, and then they just could not create. And there wasn't any teeth in the document, They couldn't agree on shit. It was a mess. The Constitutional Convention was also, a big mess. Here's something I don't love about Eugene politics. People don't like when you raise your voice. I love people that raise their voice. I love people who are like loud and a little disruptive, and they say that my opinion matters so strongly that you can feel in your eardrums that it's in my bones when I speak. That's what I love, and that's what the Constitutional Convention was like. But you go to any meeting, 4J school board,
men.
Big facts. Really? Yep.
That's also what the Constitutional Convention was about.
Super facts, as Jay-Z would say on 444. Super facts. I ain't lie. So yeah, dog. I just think that there's this culture in Eugene where, I've been called alienating a lot because I feel like I keep it real, and I just wish that Eugenians would recognize that when you have such an emphasis on a polite, maybe deferential modus operandi when it comes to people's communication about political ideas, you are marginalizing people. Like, I'm not a big fan of choose kindness as the big thing that is being done. And I'm not going to invite you to shit on anyone, but like I personally am frustrated with some of the direction that's going on in the leadership of the city. And, here's my big thing about choose kindness. And I'll probably tell this to future podcast guests. If you come to Eugene and you take a position of power and you use that position of power to ask people to choose kindness, that's like New York City saying we need to choose to start building skyscrapers. We have tons of kindness in Eugene already.
Well, we have a ton. Oh my gosh. Okay, so as you brought up earlier, I've been organizing this community for a long time, ever since I was able to find my voice and realize that there's definite points I think I can bring up that other folk feel that don't feel empowered enough to actually advocate for themselves for it or talk for themselves for it, right?
Awesome.
And so one of the things is I don't want to like talk for people, right?
Sure.
But I try to talk to people, listen to them, and then incorporate what they're saying. So that way I can get it to as many folk as possible, right? Mm-hmm. Because like I think about things, right? I process.
You've said it a lot. You drink and you know things.
Yeah, I mean, huzzah, right? And so so it gets really squirrely sometimes, and drawing it back to the. Oh gosh. Okay, so as some of y'all might know, I'm a little opinionated and have I mean, never caps lock.
You are, but I asked for a controversial opinion, and you effectively didn't give one.
Yeah, okay, so I'm about to.
All right, let's go.
I'm about to. Okay, so as we were talking about, the embedded racism and the embedded privilege of America is very much paralleled by classic activism. Because that classic activism wasn't what brought the civil rights movement around. That classic activism is what got moderate, incremental protections that have now been rolled back. And so the fact that those still generally were espoused from privileged backgrounds, like how Love Canal up in upstate New York, that was a super fun site, got attention by soccer moms in a predominantly white suburb to get federal funding to help clean it up, versus Cancer Alley down in Louisiana, in that delta, that, I mean, that's not like, this is a good cancer, right? It is Cancer Alley because of all the industrial runoff that is permitted to go through a predominantly black and other community of color.
Right.
And so that idea of, well, we're environmentalists, look what we did.
Uh-huh.
Turning a complete blind eye to what is happening and what they allowed to still happen.
Sure.
With that position of privilege, that microphone and that megaphone that they once had, right? And so now I definitely understand the disappointment of they too seeing a lot of the stuff that they fought so hard for, right? I mean, just because they came from a background more privileged than other people does not mean that they did not put what they had on the line. Just because it was more than some others, right? I mean, that's commendable to an extent.
Yeah.
Because that's what you need to do with privilege. If you have some privilege, you need to use it to leverage empowerment and advocacy for those with less.
Sure.
And so, like, kudos to that, right? I don't want to, like, say it was all for naught, but looking at things now, right? It is hard to not feel that.
Yeah.
By a lot of people, by even them, which is why there's that extra layer of defensiveness, because they not only saw all the stuff they fought for being rolled back and attacked by a constant stream of money, but their futures, their retirements, right?
Yeah.
Like, that is so under jeopardy. And still, Eugene gives the Gordon Lofts a tax break for some luxury apartments.
Them, right? Yeah.
As opposed to
MUPTE, multi-unit property tax exemption.
Yeah.
Specifically for the downtown. I don't know why I'm doing this voice now. But yeah, it's interesting to see, we have
to come together.
We do. We do. And it's like, It's fascinating that, people love the label of being progressive, so they brand themselves, literally brand their campaign materials, etc., with the word progressive, and say that, they're the progressive in the race or something like that. It doesn't say that, though. It just says Eugene, Oregon,
Or it says Yook for mayor.
2020 Yook for mayor. Yeah, absolutely. But,
Sorry.
yeah, but we've got people, constantly saying I'm the progressive in the race, blah, blah. And, everybody in this race is progressive. All 7 of us, as far as I've seen, that are running on very progressive platforms.
And yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I'm not saying I'm progressive. I'm saying these are things
True.
we need to do that are good for the people. Let us do them now.
There you go.
Here are the different pieces we have in the community that I have seen that I'm starting to tap because we need to do this now.
Just to make clear, yeah, you don't have to join me in dissing the mayor, but she used this phrase, the progressive choice, on her materials, and it made sense when she was running against Mike Clark and Stefan Streck. They have right-leaning views, but nobody in this race has right-leaning views. I might have the most right-leaning views of anybody in this race. So I get that it's funny. It makes sense from a progressive standpoint to reuse her lawn signs because that's environmentally conscious, but I do think that saying you're the progressive choice, it's a little questionable if you really look at everybody and put them on a spectrum, which you could argue is artificial. She's one of the least progressive. But I mean, all right, again, beforehand, you didn't want to go in and jump on anyone. And you have your own candidacy, and I think it's awesome. So I'll try to shut up about that. You also said something about the...
I mean, okay, I will say one thing, sorry, since you did bring it
Please
up.
do.
And thank you very much for respecting my idea that I want to,
Right on.
This ain't a shade campaign, y'all. This is something, I want people to realize that we can do this. That even if I don't do this, y'all, we're going to make accessibility to civic engagement happen.
I love it.
And so, yeah, I mean, if nothing else, I hope that we can make sure that anointing doesn't happen again. Because I feel very much. I mean, I've got my Venice pin in my campaign drawer, y'all. Right? I did some door knocking for her for sure.
I think she worked hard. It's not that she totally, just waltzed in there, but there was a degree to which the way was paved. The way was paved for her to go in and be that Kitty Piercy endorsed successor to the previous vision, and that's kind of where we've been at. And if you like that, that's cool. I think that it's great to have a diversity of voices, experiences, age range, background, gender identity, ability, all these things represented, especially if we're going to be progressive. But I'm also running, so I'm extraordinarily biased. This is not an unbiased journalist talking to just some random person.
To another mayoral candidate.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
But I mean, and so one thing, one of the main reasons I tossed my hat in this, right, was the, sorry, I figured I'm taking it off.
No, it's cool. You're just alienating the audio listeners. I'll now describe. The candidate Matthew Yook threw his hat forward about 4 feet and landed on a soft carpet ground as he said that. Please proceed. You're goofball. I love it.
I mean,
the reason why you threw your hat in.
Yeah, the reason I threw my hat in, right? I was originally looking into housing, how it's going, right?
Yes.
As I say on my campaign website, I've been blessed with a cheap apartment for the past 10 years.
I've heard you describe it as a shithole. I disagree. You said that at a public comment, so I'm allowed to bring it up.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. And the worst part, right? That was my mayoral candidacy, right?
Your introduction to it,
at
very
a
recently.
city council meeting, and so that was a little embarrassing for sure, right? I hope not to repeat an instance like that, but that was directly in relation to the short-term rental kerfuffle, right? It was very strange, even tangent. So I was talking with Betty Taylor at the South Eugene neighborhood candidate forum, trying to see about how lodging taxes have been received by the community. Because one of my ideas is we need to pass one so that way we can ensure Eugene captures as much money as possible from the upcoming track events. And so getting an inroad.
I mean, there's tons of hotels going up in town, everywhere, every part of town.
And so even better, right? Since we already know it's profitable and business is coming in, there's 3 ways I want to make sure we can sell it to other folk that might hear fear around it. But before even that happens, I need to figure out what work and then what research has been done around a lodging tax in Eugene already.
Okay.
Especially if there's a long-time city councilor that has been working for one, right? I figured that would be a great place to start.
Betty Taylor is in her 90s. She's an amazing person, and she has held a position on the Eugene City Council longer than anybody else in history, for anyone who didn't know.
And then the thing is that she's all like, yeah, short-term rentals, they need to be taxed. I'm all like, yeah, sure, I'm not asking
She
about...
believes deeply in that. She's the most let's regulate short-term rentals person on the whole 8-person council.
And so, I mean, I didn't realize why she thought that's what I was talking about.
Airbnb, by the way, that's what we're talking about. STR, short-term rentals. Essentially, it's Airbnb and sites like that allow people to have a facilitated, brief duration where they're renting out rooms or entire houses. Because, but your argument is that this is problematic because it cuts deeply into those properties used to be for long-term renters, i.e. Eugenians, people living in the community. And so we already have a big housing shortage, particularly in the affordable housing department. You've got these big lofts going up.
Affordable housing is a misnomer.
Yeah, let's talk about that. You had a piece that you wrote in The Guard about that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But even going back real quick,
yeah,
right?
Of course.
Short-term rentals and oh my gosh. Yeah, as you were saying, the fact that they are taking rental properties, vacant properties, at least... If a short-term rental is happening in your non-primary residence, it needs to be at a rate that doesn't cut into long-term renter stock, which is definitely the complaint that has come to the forefront. It has been lost a little bit, which is why Betty Taylor came back with that, we need to tax short-term rentals. But in that city council meeting where I did my announcement,
Sure,
there was a bunch of folks from the Short-Term Rental Association or whatever it was, just talking about, my second home... There were more of them in
previous meetings even.
My second home's not going to be as profitable. And so that's why I'm like, oh my gosh, every time I've tried looking for a place to move out to that I could secure and stabilize, they were out of reach. Yet y'all are complaining about your non-primary residence not being as profitable or not being able to rent it out to, to everyday Eugenians because it's worth more than that. That got me really upset.
Okay.
How can housing in Eugene be worth more than Eugenians? Right?
Well, the flip side, and I probably take a little bit of a different position than you, is that those are Eugenians exercising their right, and they, rely on that income. I've got a good friend, Dylan Hudson, who I recently interviewed, the property manager on the show, and his perspective is that there is a lot of rhetoric that, people... that there's a lot of anti-landlord rhetoric that doesn't acknowledge the diversity of the experiences of landlords, people who, have 3 rental properties, and they're not really wealthy people. They're just people who still work at the, at Costco, is his example of our friend who does that. And so it's like, gosh, what is the role and the purpose of government? I do think that if it's to be done, it almost is best suited for the federal level or the city level. Because if we're gonna take a stance against short-term rentals, that has to be something that is fair across the board in the country, or it has to be localities, municipalities saying this has become such an issue here. And Eugene is a tourist-heavy place. People like to come here and visit and not necessarily live and stay because there isn't as robust an economy as other major cities, or, they just, maybe it's a seasonal thing. They don't like being here in the rainy season, etc.
The Ducks games as well are a huge driving factor, I feel.
Massive.
The idea of short-term rentals being a necessity. As you were saying, the drain of a lot of the more mobile folk from Eugene that might have been Duck alumni, right? Benefit a lot from the availability of short-term rentals.
Sure.
Because it gets them that catharsis on top of coming back for a Ducks game. And so It's, I mean,
Like the feeling of being in like, this is like what it was like to live here again instead of checking into the hotel room. Interesting. Nostalgia.
nostalgia and the sentiment and feeling of Eugene, like talking to folk about how they are opposed to multi-unit complexes being part of the SB 2010, right?
I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. There've been a lot of information, a lot of numbers I've been trying to crunch. But the Oregon legislative bill that mandated multi-unit zoning on all single-unit zones from here on out to help address the housing crisis.
Sure.
And so going back to that right now, I definitely understand the idea of investing in property and investing in rentals. Dude working at Costco probably is not trying to capitalize on short-term rentals, right? As opposed to everyone at that meeting that looks like what they do. That was their retirement plan.
Okay.
Capitalizing on jacked up housing payments. And that gets problematic when houses are 14 times more expensive for millennials than they were for boomers. 14 times. And so until we can actually draw some parity, not even multi-generationally, but like between everyone economically, especially concerning housing, I feel very passionately that we need a strong regulatory hand on short-term rentals. Because right now, people that got laid off from the restaurant jobs
Yeah.
are now going to bag groceries temporarily. And still
Are you talking
probably
about
can't
because
afford
of the
short-term rentals.
COVID-19? Yeah.
And so, like, thinking about that economically, and then thinking about people complaining about my secondary property is not going to be as valuable, while these folks that were kind of subsidizing their poverty wages with tips don't even get that through unemployment, which is already a percentage, tiny fraction.
One of the regulations that they were speaking out against was putting a 90-day limit on these short-term rentals. Out of 365 days, I mean, how do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
what are we going to call a long-term rental, right? If we're going to having to start draw classifications between periods of time for rental, 90 days seems pretty dang good. Like, after 90 days, if that's not a long-term rental, what would you call it?
No. What I mean is that out of the year, they can only lease out their property or not lease out, but do the Airbnb thing for a 90-day period. So it's several mini rentals within that period. And then I guess the idea is that theoretically they would use the rest of the year, the other 270 days roughly, and hopefully do long-term rentals with that. But isn't that challenging? Like that's not. Yeah, exactly. People want to rent, and live there for a couple of years. So that's why I'm concerned about that 90-day limit. Another argument that's pro short-term rentals, maybe you could respond to, is that it gives people the income that they might need to fix up a property, which is ultimately good for our housing stock in Eugene. We don't have a lot of, we're seeing that a lot of this missing middle housing, it's not in great quality. It's in disrepair. And this is a way that the landowners can address that.
And so, yeah, I mean, with the 90-day per year thing, I did not know that was a 90-day per year thing.
Yeah.
I'm very late to this conversation because I didn't think it was such an issue, right? But the fact that...
I admire that you jumped in with passion
and so
when you heard about it, because people need to do that.
Well, and then that's the thing. Like, I jump into things with passion, but then I'm pretty receptive for folk telling me that's not how it works. Hey, actually, right? And, I mean, with my sometimes more confrontational manner on addressing things, I find a little not accurate, we shall say, right?
Okay.
I mean, the idea that 90 days was a limit through a year to encourage long-term rentals is not what I would have moved forth with, because that is ridiculous. I would have actually tried enacting a cap or taxing it at such a rate that even for a period of time, it would still not be as profitable per se as
compared to long-term rentals.
on a non-primary residence.
Okay.
Only like if you're renting out your room
Your
or extra
room,
room or
okay.
something, right? Or like letting people. I mean, I used to. I couch surf host, right? .com is very good for doing these things. Otherwise, outside of that, and so it's just the idea I feel very upset about being a long-term renter of Eugene. That the access to not even missing middle income housing, right?
Sure.
But that step just above like low,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Excuse me.
No,
That
you're
step
good.
just right above low, which is something that even talking with Home for Good folk, they're like,
Yeah.
Cause I mean, like, yeah, and we definitely need more of these housing so that way people can build more equity or build more savings and have an ability to move out of these low income residences and whatnot, right? And then I was like, yeah, but they never do. I was like, well, because there's nothing to move to, y'all.
Yeah.
How can you actually expect them to move out, especially when every time their income increases, you bump it up. You bump up their rent to that maximum of 80% median, which HUD calls low income, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing.
Explain
Affordable
that.
housing.
Explain what affordable means. Isn't it 30% of your income? It means affordable housing.
Yeah.
So
anyone you're talking to is just like, affordable housing to them is 30% of their income.
Right.
And so anything bent to facilitate, subsidize, or finance affordable housing is targeted to 30% of whoever income. So say you're a missing middle class housing target and you want a single family home to be able to build real quick and turn around at the exorbitant rates we are able to charge in Eugene. Well, we now have public subsidies going to help encourage that. Instead of going to house people that don't have houses, which I think is a little backwards, right? I mean, if we're going to talk about housing, I mean, one of the main things about my little housing spiel, right, is like the wish, the hiss. That's because of housing and homelessness.
a hiss for housing or something like that.
There's so many
I saw
lips.
that. I was very curious about that.
So many lips.
You know what I just realized, though? We're not modeling good social distancing. This isn't 6 feet. But I guess I'll just name it, because we are only two of us in the room. But I feel bad because I did a little criticism, and then I was like, well, I'm not really modeling this very well. Anyway, that was just a total interruption. Talk about the wish and the hiss and the housing.
Yeah, I mean, there's no worries on that, too. Like, I've been isolating myself, thankfully. I'd already kind of
Me too.
pictured that there was not going to be much time for doing stuff outside organizing. Running campaigns, y'all, right?
Yay. But we did the elbow bump.
And so, yeah, I mean, it worked out pretty well, at least for that. And then, yeah, a wish, a hiss, so many lips and whatnot, like...
For so many lips, that's what it was. Please explain. I see that, and I'm like, I have no idea what this means.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird, the idea that we need more housing. And we focus on housing as opposed to addressing the fact that housing and homelessness are two sides of that same coin. Which is why, like, housing's a wish. But then the lack of housing is a hiss by a lot of folk, right?
Ah.
And so that dichotomy of what is shelter, what is housing, and what people should have living in a society and a community is very divisive right now. And so trying to bring that together, right? Like, it's not just housing we're talking about, y'all, but we need to make sure that homelessness is included in that.
Okay.
Which is why that it's a wish, a hiss on so many lips, right? I mean, I had to put 4 in there because, like, Yook for mayor.
Yeah.
Easy to remember. My last name, y'all.
There you go.
That's right.
Oh, it's 4 letters. It's a 4-letter word. Yook out of here.
Oh, dang, that would have been neat. But yeah, I should have. Anyway,
Yeah.
it
What do you think about ADUs, man? I mean,
we need them.
Yes, I think that people should have the right to easily build accessory dwelling units on their properties. Todd Boyle on my friend Tiger Gruber's podcast had a great way of putting it. He basically said, so if you are a property owner, you've got all these property rights, why do you then have the ability to get even more rights to tell your neighbors on their property that they cannot build a little hut or, have a little trailer in their backyard where somebody else is living. I agree with that. But the thing is in Eugene, they say people don't like, there's a lot of NIMBYism in Eugene, not a lot of not in my backyard attitude in Eugene. And people will often say, well, we don't like density, but we also don't like sprawl. We say we love people, but the people want to be here. And there's just not that much option that's allowed for people to exist healthily and happily. Yeah, some people just really don't want Eugene to grow. I think it's going to keep happening.
It's projected to keep happening. That's the reason why there's all the planning commissions doing a long plan to 2030, which is one thing I want the new joint strategic housing coordinator to incorporate into her purview outside of just the rolling out
Sarai
of the TAC
Johnson,
report. Right? Sarai Johnson, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Working between the county and the city to try to build solutions.
To roll out the TAC specifically. That's why she is the strategist hired
Technical
formerly
Assistance
of Medco.
Collaborative. See, I'm really just showing off that I know all these acronyms. Hey. People look at me, they're like, who's this fucking young person running for mayor? Probably doesn't know shit. I'm like, bruh, I got acronyms all day.
I actually had a meeting with a high-ranking official in our city governance and was able to explain to them, actually, the federal funding for housing does need to be managed privately. And that's when I'm
Does
like, okay,
or doesn't need to
does.
be?
Federal
Okay.
funding for housing after Reagan-era bill, which
Okay.
is what our housing bill here in Oregon replicated to amend the Constitution.
Sounds very
to allow
trickle
that.
down.
A little bit.
Okay.
And like I'd explain to someone that was, high up. And then I'm like, okay, I need to announce for mayor because I actually feel like I know a lot more about city governance and operational happenings than people before they stepped into that position.
We ain't doing no shade room, but
Yeah, okay, a little
Where's
bit,
the
sorry,
light?
a
Where's the
little bit.
all right. Nah, it's cool. You do have a ton of depth of knowledge.
I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I know I'm not maybe the most establishment person, right?
Sure.
Not maybe the most professional person, but like making it easier.
What is professionalism?
Uh,
Yeah. Your photos look great. Your portraits look amazing. Are you going to have a domain name? You were talking with Rapid Gator today about that.
Oh yeah, no, totally. And so
because right now it's not a domain name.
Oh no,
so
it is. It's just the problem was that
is it going to be yook4mayor.com? Okay, right.
I had to switch between
YOOK 4 mayor.com.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I'm Hiura2020.org.
Yeah.
Why'd you opt for .com over .org, man? You're not a commercial entity.
I'm not, but
it's just more common.
Look a little more establishment.
Yeah.
Because as you may know, like
Right.
most of my ID are not necessarily the most most establishment.
Keep that microphone up.
As you might know, most of my ideas are not the most establishment.
Yeah,
but, like this is what this should look like. I'm
Oh man, it's starting to look awesome.
on a mobile shit. Like I've got
Yeah.
that all condensed
Yeah.
down, right? Oh, got that thing there. Go back up the top. I need to get my YouTube button on the bottom because that's where I'm
Yeah.
trying to direct a lot of folk.
Yeah.
And then
Do that to the camera too. You don't want to
sorry.
alienate them.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Hold it nice and close. Yeah. Ooh. So we've got Green New Deal for Eugene, housing, a wish, a hiss for so many lips, development for the community, participation and access for transparency, safety and justice for the people, collaborate for education, sanctuary and security for all. Now, we made Eugene a sanctuary city within the first 2 months of 2017, the first 3 months. Yeah. So what is your intent with sanctuary and security for all?
And so, yeah, I very much appreciate that. But looking at Oregon and then Portland also being a sanctuary city and some agents coming in and getting information from city agencies up there to...
Are you talking about law enforcement?
Yeah, to detain folk. I need to make sure that we're actually standing by being a sanctuary city and a sanctuary state. And so,
Interesting.
Sorry, even go a little further.
My position,
Like,
I've been upset for a long time that the mayor's, that the status quo rather, I can't read that right now. It's a podcast. We don't want to read too much. Is that the city didn't collaborate with ICE, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement, but it didn't take a particularly anti-ICE sentiment. They just said, hey, look, we're not collaborating with them. They're still going to raid here. They still came here and raided undocumented communities, workers, families, children. But the fact that we didn't help them explicitly, that to me, it's a little bit of a milquetoast, not for particularly strong or effective solution. You know, I want my city to be advocates
Welcome
for
to
the
Eugene.
people. Yeah.
Let's wait for that cap 3.0, y'all.
Yeah.
Oh,
we've got good people. It's just I don't know why it's not, happening or reflecting the real will of the people as much.
We needed a TAC report to tell us we need more low-income housing. No, 1,000 low-income, low-barrier, no more than 50% of median income units is what we need right now.
Yeah.
I mean, not a promise, right? Because I can't promise that shit, but
we got to build a lot.
We got to make that discussion.
Up. A lot of people
from the bottom up.
They don't want the skyline or the horizon to be messed up because they're just in love with what it looks like now. It's like, come on, man. Look at an old photo of Eugene in the 1880s and 1890s. It looked very different. It looked beautiful in its way. It looks beautiful now, and it'll look beautiful in 30 years when we have 15-story buildings. I believe in that. I think that that's an okay thing because if you build up in the middle of the city, there's economic prosperity and density and opportunity, and people are going to spend in those walkable neighborhoods. If you build outward, you're going to change, and I'm not totally opposed to that either, but you're going to change the character of neighborhoods in Bethel, in River Road.
We actually need a lot more development in Bethel. Please pour money into Bethel.
I really wanted to be the candidate for North and West Eugene, man. Give them a voice. If you look at who voted for the incumbent mayor, it's very deeply concentrated in a small section of South Eugene.
The thing is,
and there's just not that much voice that those communities have had. I lived off River Road, is where I grew up.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge swath out there that's actually dubbed an opportunity zone. While I don't agree with a lot of the tax policies that have come out of the current administration, the fact that that could be an opportunity zone people could invest in, that there's dark fiber running under a lot of Oregon infrastructure, which is like the state cables, right? Like the state internet cables that we can flip on and then create some IT incubation with opportunity zone investment.
Can you explain what opportunity zones are? What it means?
They're horrible, y'all.
Aw.
Like, I don't want to because they're bad.
So many misnomers in the world of government, leadership, politics, education.
And so,
because it sounds amazing.
It sounds amazing. I love opportunity. And
A whole
zone for it. Oh my gosh, right? And so, yeah, I mean, under the 2017 tax law that Trump passed, he created opportunity zones to help investment in impoverished communities.
Okay.
Rad, right?
Sure.
One of the problems is that the only people that can invest in those communities are already the really rich capitalists that are vulture-like already, that haven't yet because it's not been as profitable, right? And so this is to encourage them to go and turn these communities into or help these communities out a little bit, right? And one of the other problems on top of that, the reason why those communities are so impoverished, as you may know, is federal abandonment. And then the defunding of publicly owned, high-density, low-income housing.
Okay.
And so it is pretty much the Reagan neoliberalism that Nixon tried birthing with Friedman coming back to bite us. Because now all these people that have been in charge of development can now get a 10-year capital gains tax free development in those opportunity zones.
Okay.
And the problem with capital gains tax is the way investment banking works, the way our economy works now after the 70s, is that is completely inaccessible to most folk. And so it will only exacerbate that giant wealth divide that we really need to address.
So if you're Mayor Yook, how are you going to get more investment into and, sustainable or, in your view, better development in those communities with that with an alternative to opportunity zones?
Not an alternative right now, because that is a federal...
The status quo?
Well, not a status quo thing, but that is a mechanism
Okay.
that is in place that we can use to try and benefit a community.
Okay.
It's not a mechanism I would choose, but it being there means we can use it. And so trying to create an incubator in that space with maybe Chamber of Commerce, Technology Association of Oregon, and then Lane Community College. So that way we can create IT pipeline of people and stop the brain bleed Eugene is experiencing for young professionals by going into a community that has a lot of families and saying, here is opportunity. That then could be utilized not only through extending that publicly sourced internet through that community, right?
Right.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah. But then we could offer services to local businesses. This is one thing I really want to do. There's a lot of complaint about curbside appeal in Eugene and foot traffic, right?
Sure.
And it's completely distracting from the idea that local small retailers are confronting Amazon, are confronting Walmart and Target online, are confronting these giant online marketplaces that, of course, can
And so
sell
you're
and
saying
ship things
that
to the
it's
door.
easy to scapegoat the folks that very visibly are out there supposedly making the property value go down, but
Especially when those retailers have worked so
the
hard.
unseen entity is actually sucking up a lot of the capital that used to go into those brick and mortar stores.
Well, yeah, and I mean the people that worked so hard to make those businesses, right?
Yeah.
Then see people not working, which is an understandable upset, right? Well, I mean, I think their upset is kind of misplaced for market, trends.
Okay.
Still, I completely understand why they would be upset with that idea. That's why instead
it's just an extreme level in Eugene. It's okay. We are the number one in homelessness per capita in the country, and it's actually by a pretty sizable margin, above what was it, L.A. and so I am deeply concerned about how we can get businesses to come here, good businesses to come here, and get people to stay here. Given this status quo situation.
And so that's the thing. If we start turning on more internet, we can definitely start feeding that pipeline of where our economy has shifted.
Okay.
And so investing back in that, I feel, is very important, which is why through that incubator, I want to help local businesses get access to web presence, search engine optimizations, and then maybe even a shopping cart application backend. Because I know that shopping cart transaction point can be a barrier to a lot of folks trying to go bigger. And if we could offer it at a lower rate, so that way there was more competition that they could facilitate, we could help them out. The other thing I want to do with the homelessness, of course, is instead of giving more money to cops for broken windows.
Broken windows policing.
Talk to CAHOOTS that we just got praised for, that we photo opt with, right?
CAHOOTS does have a very disproportionately small percentage of the public safety budget, though they respond to a very high volume of calls, and they have the police radio on them. They hear all the calls, etc.
They even contract with the
crisis
EPD
assistance helping out on the streets. Acronym time, baby. Let's go. I've done my research. Anyway, not only have I done my research, they're a very seen entity in the community with the big vans that they drive, but more people could know, when to call on them and how they're trained and how they intervene.
Like, okay, so yeah, some ideas.
It's kind of a buffer between the straight up Eugene police and the general public, like Matthew Yook walking down the street and trying to intervene in
You okay,
someone
bud?
who's having a mental
need,
health
like-
crisis or
I
any
don't
kind
wanna-
of crisis
don't
on the streets.
Like,
Yeah.
we should go this way, yo.
Because
Like,
a lot of people
calm.
are afraid to call the police. And my position, and I don't care if this makes me look a little less progressive or whatever, is that when you think about the problems that have existed in the history of American policing, and you think about the national climate of policing, Eugene police are relatively kick-ass, man. There's a high level of accountability, and yeah, you're not with it. You're not with it.
It is better than some places.
They experience a low level of funding that makes it very difficult for them to do their jobs in terms of how many officers we have per capita.
I've got a fun story about that.
All right, go on.
So I have this pay per mile insurance.
And
in
I
my
would
car.
say that as someone who actually experienced some violence at the hands of a cop, you know, and that. So I'm not saying that, you know, I'm painting with a really broad brush, and sometimes it's helpful to go a little more granular. But yeah, dude, it's something I feel like I wanted to say.
Of course, like tossing that. One thing is, I don't want to say all police are generally folk that want to go in to abuse people. I've known many cadets.
Yeah, I don't like that idea.
I've known many cadets, and I've talked to police officers that honestly got into the profession of being a police officer to help their community out and to maybe help destigmatize some of the issues that are seen. And so, of course, we get to see, I mean, the worst parts of it because we kind of need to, because they've got a lot of, society gives them a lot of power. They have been granted a lot of power, and it's been ruled on that they have that power. And so understanding that, I mean, power can corrupt, y'all, right?
You ever been to a police commission meeting?
Not in a while.
They're open to the public. Oh, okay, but you have.
Oh yeah, of course,
Okay.
man. I mean, I used to be very much more active. Like the past couple of years, I've
And Sean
definitely
Shivers is the chair of those meetings now.
had to.
And I generally trust Sean, although we have some disagreements on things. What's that?
Nothing. But yeah, and so we need to. Okay, so for going back, sorry, tangent side. I want to talk to CAHOOTS. I think I love what they've been doing, as does everyone. The problem is that we've had too much reactionary patchwork happening in Eugene governance to deal with situations that we have not been able to take time because we don't have the funding, right? We're barely paying our city. We don't even pay our city councilors and mayor to really like do this stuff by themselves, right?
No, we don't.
I mean, as our city grows, y'all,
That's going to become necessary.
It's gonna become necessary,
Well,
for
I
sure,
think
for
it's
sure.
very troubling that a low-income person can't be the mayor, dude. I mean, think about it. Like, what Mayor Venice raised, and I'm keep going to her because she's the current mayor. I'm not. This has been a problem far beyond her. She raised so much money, $110,000.
$68,000 in a month.
Yeah,
In the month of February,
right.
$68,000.
Well, she was a development director for shelter care, which largely means that she was calling people for money. So she's well experienced in how that scale of fundraising works. I'm not going to knock her for that. That's the reality of where she's been at and what she's been doing.
And politics, get money out, y'all.
I deeply believe we need to get money out. Do you believe in publicly funding of elections? Dude, heck yeah.
And start voting and
Yeah.
democracy reform.
Yep, star voting. Look that up. STAR, score, then automatic runoff. Acronyms! Where was I going with that before we went on that?
I was trying to detract from.
Right. Oh,
That's
but
okay.
I mean, think about how much money she'll make as mayor. What is it? $24,000 a year or 22? 22. I think it's 22. So she'll make $88K, but she spent $110K to get the job. It wasn't her, but it was other people who, blah, blah, blah. So, and then didn't Jim Tory dump in $500K for a mayoral race previously? Don't quote me on that, but look it up and then quote me if I'm right. And if I'm wrong, forget every word that I said for the last 30 seconds.
Or know that we
so
are
really it's
fallible, and so that we can apologize and learn, because that's one of the most important things that.
Why do
we
you
need
have
to
so much
accept, y'all.
integrity? It's a podcast. No, I'm fucking with you. That's gonna be my excuse for everything. It's a podcast. But yeah, frankly, this is something that we talked about when I was a student at Carleton College on the Carleton Student Association Senate for 4 years. Were we going to then make the student body president into a campus job? Well, it would make a lot of sense because the duties involved are probably much greater and a greater demand on their time than a job. But if you have to have a campus job, it becomes very difficult to also hold that role. And so the same attitude, I think, should apply to the mayor and city council in Eugene. Is like, we expect them to do this work, but we don't pay them a living wage. And so their time is going to be very divided. And I think we should have more than one city council meeting every 2 weeks. I think that there should be maybe three meetings in a month instead of 2.
And so definitely, I mean, the limited capacity that they have, the idea that we are a city run by a city manager, that the city council just passes laws, passes it down, and then
mayor makes recommendations for her to do the stuff to him for a long time. John Reese.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, but anywho, and so yeah, oh my gosh,
What? Do you have a cat? I'm getting a little sniffly.
I do not.
Okay.
Sometimes they bust through the window though, because there's some strays.
All right.
But it was so random too, right? You're like,
blame it all on
I
that
just
cat.
oh my gosh.
What were you going to say? Was it about the city manager or the structure of the city manager doing everything, or was it about John Reese?
Before that.
Huh.
About
paying the... Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
Let's get these people
dude.
paid.
Okay. And so that's the problem, right?
One thing Bob Cassidy ran on was that there should be a $15 minimum wage for city staff, which is 1,500 people in Eugene. It's a lot of city staff.
I mean,
why it strikes
minimally.
me when there's no major accomplishment happening. It's like you got so many people.
Yeah. I mean, there are accomplishments happening.
Of
it's
course.
just they're not happening for people to see, which
Yep.
is the problem.
Yep.
And so, like, that's why I want to open up all the meetings to transparency, podcast, broadcast, get that stuff going down, right? But then talking back about, like, city councilors, right? I understand that they've got other duties, that they've got to, like, also provide roofs for themselves because they're not paid enough to actually provide that governance and that representation that I think a lot of us would like to see, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean,
you get more people running if you made it a lucrative position. I believe that too.
Ironically,
a lot of people want to run for county commissioner. Why? Because they make $87,000 a year. Does anybody
With
truly
full benefits.
believe that they do
It's like
they do 4 times
$150,000
more work
position.
than the mayor of Eugene? I don't believe that.
and full benefits.
Yeah.
Like, it's like $150,000 a year.
With the state legislators,
stuff.
I think it makes sense to be very part-time. They make $24K because we want them to not be in Salem all the time, and we want them to have their other jobs and know what the experience, continue to be in the experience of, being a teacher or being I don't know, anything in Eugene.
And yeah, as a student government treasurer, I was able to build a coalition where we were able to raise the
Was that where
stipend, Lane Community College,
Right on.
to raise the stipends that executives got and even the Senate got, right? Because it takes time to deal with that stuff.
Yeah.
Like at Lane Community College, it was rad. We actually had a shared governance system where representatives from the student government were sitting on the official boards. Our president was on the Board of Education.
That's amazing.
And so, yeah, making sure that they had the time and capacity on top, right?
Right.
Of getting that degree, because that's really important.
Sure.
If you're spending that time
And
and
those
money.
degrees, the thing that I think was probably a challenge there is that people are not there for very long compared to like ASUO at the University of Oregon.
High turnover.
Yeah, high turnover. Institutional memory is important. When you have a whole new group of people and nobody knows the basics of, government functionality, that is a challenge.
Especially at a commuter campus, a community college. That's Lane Community, right?
Yeah.
Where you got to pretty much devote 45 minutes to a bus ride just to make it there.
Sure.
And then if you got to work after that, yeah, you got to. Well, I mean.
Yeah, how many hours are left in your day to be involved in all that stuff?
And so the idea that it's only for the privileged is definitely a conversation I want to help discuss more. Which is why asking for more money is going to be kind of hard. Admittedly, we've got a great opportunity to look at how we structure and how, like, income and the economy is working and distributing itself with this current lockdown. As discussions about equity start busting out more, about people literally talking about universal basic income on the federal level.
Yeah, it's funny that we had a candidate who made that their frontier issue and did way better than a lot of people were expecting and lasted much longer. And then now it takes a pandemic virus that's 20 times more. I don't know for sure that it's 20 times more lethal than H1N1 swine flu was. That's what it takes to get that consideration. And it's only going to be, for like a couple of checks. But
opposed to the 1.5 trillion the Fed dumped into the stock market to try to stabilize it, that burned up in less than 3 hours. $1.5 trillion, less than 3 hours.
Wow.
As they tried to pull us out of that nosedive.
Who did they give that
Tuesday.
Money to? The banks? Wow.
To the giant lending firms. So our investment banking, stock markets, they're a very strange bubble.
Yeah.
That the repealing of Glass-Steagall that Clinton did made it even worse because personal banking got thrown into that. As much as we tried to amend that after the financial collapse and Obama pushing some stuff through, it wasn't far enough. And so that has just exacerbated the wealth gap, which, going back to capital gains tax idea, right? That idea that, well, capital gains tax is how wealth gets redistributed the most inequitably because of capital investments being only for the privileged and then taxed at a far lower rate than people fucking putting food on the table, people coding your iPhones and shit, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever phone. And so, oh my gosh, sorry, language.
Dude, it's a podcast.
Income inequality is something that I am very passionate about. We completely shirked the Phillips curve. That was the unemployment wage model in the late 70s, as we shift fully more to that financial side. And so, looking at how wealth has been redistributed in capital gains tax, while I'm not the biggest fan of it, and we definitely need to create higher and higher brackets, especially, as a lot of billionaires right now, maybe not a lot of billionaires, but, a few billionaires are realizing and advocating for.
Yeah.
We need to utilize what we have to help Bethel out by creating the incubator. And so, understanding how these different mechanisms work is something that I want to help folk do.
Okay.
And so one, for the city right now is making that more open and transparent.
Okay.
Because then they can see okay, well, why is this getting a tax break? Why is this getting that capital gains tax break and whatnot? And yeah.
Well, I think that income inequality has been been a prevailing and damaging and sort of speeding up issue for my entire life. I was born in 1993, and so one thing that I really want to do as a candidate, and this might sound like it's very whiplashy, is conservative dignity. So I am putting together a series of ideas that I want to use in order to very explicitly say, hey, you know what? I might feel like I'm a progressive person, and you look at my politics and I've supported Bernie, Warren, Yang on the national level and think that person's not a conservative. But what I am very concerned about is how do we get away from rhetoric that hurts or demonizes people to the extent that we can really bring people who would say they're conservative or right-leaning or Republican or libertarian or, even alt-right. These are human beings. Ooh, yeah, you winced. But people in that vein, they're in our community, and they don't care. Many of them don't care about income inequality. I'm not trying to paint with too broad of a brush, but they should. Everybody should.
They don't understand it yet. They're coming from a position of privilege. The thing about the alt-right is you can't reason with them. You need other people that look like them to talk to them.
Okay.
Or look like how they want to
look. I like
look.
that view of privilege and the fact that
which is why,
well,
I
don't know, man.
I've been,
You're basically saying they're just ignorant,
well, yes,
but
they're forcibly ignorant. If they choose to keep pursuing ideas that are not based in fact, no matter how much evidence is heaped at their feet.
Okay. What ideas?
What else do you call
specific.
that? That race is a construct, that you can't be proud to be white, that wanting to shoot other people for not being white is bad, that wanting to bring guns to menace people that aren't white is bad, that bringing weapons to beat people that aren't white is
I just think a lot of the folks that I went to high school with at North Eugene, right? And, you shouted out Glenwood, you shouted out Springfield.
Alt-right.
I don't even know what that word means
well, that's the thing. That's why I don't like labels, man. I'm trying to go into this without any friggin' labels.
There you go.
You brought up progressive, right? I haven't mentioned progressive at all. I haven't said I'm progressive. I said I've got a new Green Deal. Okay. I've got ideas to build housing. I've got ideas to invest in our community.
Right on.
I've got ideas to bring people to the table.
Right.
From all walks of life.
Right.
Well,
part of why I like doing a podcast is because you can have a long form discussion, and I can throw in these ideas like, hey, conservative dignity, and how do we get these people not necessarily thinking more like us, but like how do we have better conversations where we understand them better, they understand our views enough to where I think if people do have a rich historical and intellectual knowledge on the history of racist violence and white supremacy, they're gonna oppose more the Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown and Sandra Bland and Philando Castile situations. Yeah.
That happened here in Santa Clara, right?
Right. Absolutely. And I want that to happen because for as long as we are only speaking to a limited group of people, when we say that
by design, it has been designed that way.
Yeah.
Lunchtime meetings. Who can make it downtown for a lunchtime meeting, yo? Not me. That's, working food off Crescent, right? Mm-hmm. Like, hey, I'll take my entire lunch break to drive and not get anything. Like, oh my gosh, y'all.
Right.
We that's why we need to reshape that, and that's why the main thing I want to run on is transparency, right?
Cool.
Because hearing from too many folk about what's been happening.
Yeah.
What's the government doing?
Yeah.
Oh, Eugene is leaderless. Oh my God, look at all this happening, right?
Did you say leaderless?
Yeah. And
I agree, man. That's why I'm doing this podcast too.
These decisions are happening, right?
Sure.
So that's why we need to be able to put a fucking microphone where those decisions are happening, where the discussions and where the details are getting hammered out at meetings that are happening at 10 a.m., at meetings that are happening during lunchtime, that don't allow for public comments.
Right.
And so what I really want to do is have folk be able to place digital comments at the beginning of those meetings and then have it be podcast. That way they can hear their concerns get addressed by the decision makers, by the folks that are making the recommendations to the city council, which is really the only interface a lot of Eugenians have. And again, as you said, that's every other week on a school night till 9, right? Mm-hmm.
Well, okay. I think that that's a good idea. I do. But those meetings are boring. And so
that's why you podcast
the
them.
Problem with true, but that doesn't, but a podcast is not automatically interesting. You know what I mean? Just because it's in there next to the New York Times, the Daily, and all the murder podcasts and stuff. It doesn't automatically be interesting.
If you're passionate about an issue that the city of Eugene is working on,
you should at least be able to tune in
or even have the ability to find it. Right. And so even if you can't listen to it the time that meeting has happened,
the website
sucks. If they submit the digital commentary, and then podcast, they can store it like Lane Council of Governance already does on their YouTube channel. I need to follow up with them actually, but but the idea that it would then be there for them to interface with whenever, making it accessible.
Right.
I know life is busy. I know there's a lot of other stuff to do.
Sure.
But I think having that resource, and then we could take transcripts of it and then have minutes produced much quicker than they currently are.
I believe in that for sure. I just think that a middle ground thing could be a better summarizing, like summarized and good-looking graphics.
Who would summarize?
Right. That gets into the challenge of, not omitting certain voices and not creating reductionist, summaries.
Or saying who's on the committees.
I still think that
the committees are packed right now with industry interests, with very few voices from the actual community that they're purportedly building for, which is, I mean, luxury apartments, y'all.
Sure.
Property tax breaks.
Right. I believe in a mixed economy because you're talking about industry, you're talking about, you've sort of talked down about capitalists before, and I believe in the mixed economy we live in, but that it has gone too far to a deregulated crony capitalist situation. And you've got this here, and I wanted to talk about this because this is such a positive statement, people before profit. But I also know that some people are going to see that as soon as they tune in, and they're going to be like, I know what this guy's about. So,
Thank you. Yeah.
what do you think about the ideal economic solutions, maybe for Eugene, but we got to think also probably bigger than that. If we're talking about what's really going to change and make, this is a phrase people use a lot, make the economy work for us, work for everyday people.
And so,
do you have sympathy for socialism?
Socialism is a very weighted word.
Yes, it is.
I have appreciation for programs and models that are geared towards developing and building the community if a government is going to run them. Because that, I think, is the most fundamentally important part of a governmental entity. To make sure that, like...
I should have put Do Not Disturb on.
But yeah, to make sure that the community is...
Sorry. The audio people are...
deafened?
No. The audio people are getting the benefit of the fact that we didn't just get interrupted a little bit. I forgot to put Do Not Disturb on, but last time I tried this, let me just actually turn cell data off. Do you want to make up a fake advertisement for a fake product and pitch it right now into the mic while I'm doing this?
Oh yeah, I've got a real product.
Okay, talk about it.
So, hey y'all, I'm very concerned about food security. Base Maslowian needs are under jeopardy constantly. They're leveraged in fact so that way we are put and pitted against one another when we share a lot more in common than we've been told we don't. One way I want to help bring that together is by introducing an urban microgrange to Eugene. Through these urban microgranges, we can create repositories, like granges from back in the day, but on a smaller, decentralized scale, based out of community centers or other neighborhood partners, that can not only provide resources to help urban homesteading and permaculture on an individual and neighborhood level, but they can provide classes through the Oregon State University Extension Service, as well as centralizing and cutting down the carbon footprint of getting those gardening needs to the people.
Amazing. Can people find out? Is there a place people can read more about or learn more about what you just put forward?
I've only got a little blurb about it on my campaign page right now. If folks want to reach out to me, yookformayor.com has a contact place. I'm also going to be putting things on my YouTube channel, also Yook for Mayor.
Right on.
And about my platforms and some more of the details that I see being able to make my ideas happen, because I've tried to vet stuff before I put it out there, or if nothing else,
Sure.
get like, oh yeah,
Well,
you're
you
right.
ran with that really well, and I just threw that idea at you. No, it's great, because here's my alternative. Here's the business that I'm putting forward. Hip Hop Ramen Shop, Rappa Ramen. You can have freestyle raps and delicious tonkotsu pork broth ramen in the same room. Boom! Let's go, baby!
Tonkatsu.
Tonkotsu.
Tonkotsu, sorry.
They're very different. Tonkotsu is that
Oh, yeah,
white pork broth ramen. Tonkatsu is
The breaded cutlet.
the breaded pork cutlet over rice with the delicious sauce. Yeah, man. Well, it's been really fun, and it's an hour and 24 minutes in so far. But we haven't even talked about like your sustainability interest and your platform, which is the very top of the Green New Deal for Eugene. So what do you want to do with that, and why do you think it's important, man?
So
The air looks fine. We still get snow. There's no global warming.
we're just Oregon too. What about and their pollution?
Yeah.
I hear that because xenophobia, y'all. And I got to be like, well, we got to look at per capita, right? Mm-hmm. And while our per capita is not necessarily as much as other states, even, right? Like Texas is really bad, y'all.
Okay.
But the idea that we're losing 3,000 logging jobs by 2027. This is not something that Timber Unity is addressing. The fact that our economy is completely shifting, especially as our rivers dry up, get too hot for salmon to spawn. We're losing. I mean, fishing has been shut down.
Yeah.
And so the idea of bringing more industry to Oregon has been something I've been passionate about. Like one reason why I actually was an organizer on the Measure 91 campaign is because I want industrial hemp to take over the grass seed farming in Lynn County.
Okay.
Then we could not only have seed for food, we could have fiber to replace all the logging fiber that we no longer have. We could start making like toilet paper here again, right?
Right.
Or even just rendering down the cellulose in that for biofuels.
Okay.
As shit happens, right?
Yeah.
There's even oh my gosh, I saw this article I need to read more about a cannabis battery. Right?
Whoa.
Because energy storage is the other huge factor about
It
alternative
wouldn't
energy models.
replace like the lithium ion, would it?
We would hope. We need to do the research to replace lithium.
Okay.
Try to find ways that we have less intensive like materials and pieces going into these new areas we want to try exploring.
Right.
Because if we still build on those old exploitative models, we'll still be dependent upon a lot of the antiquated notions that we need to move past, that we haven't, as folk are feeling now, oh so deeply. Like
Well, I think that's really wise and long-term thinking and prescient.
And so, yeah, I'm sorry, New Green Deal, for sure.
Right. I want to say, well, I got a good segue into that because I think that it'd be amazing to have a mayor of Eugene who drives a fully electric vehicle. And I believe deeply that when I work my butt off at my jobs and I make my hard-earned, pennies, I don't want to spend a bunch of them at the petroleum stations. I don't want to go and support those industries when I know that large scale, my money is going straight into, the exploitation of
Chevron,
and
right?
offshore drilling and
Chevron knew about climate
destabilizing
change.
communities in African countries and Shell Nigeria. So I don't dig that. And so I was like, well, this is going to be really hard to afford, but I ended up getting a fully electric vehicle. And the interest payment sucks. So now I'm giving a bunch of money to Chase Bank. It's hard.
Don't ever buy a new car on lease unless there's huge tax breaks.
Right. But I feel better than I would by buying gas, and that's just I'm not judging other people. But when you say you're going to make cannabis batteries, I'm like, I want to put wax in my ear and say, "There's nothing wrong with lithium. There's nothing wrong with lithium," because already it's hard to operate. I can't get my car very far without recharging.
Yeah. And so actually, I want to slap some solar panels on community centers on everything with a roof.
Nice.
Partner with LTD.
Yeah, talk about your GND idea.
Yeah,
Local
and so
GND.
I do drive a petrol gasoline vehicle.
Sure.
But it's a '97 Kia.
Okay.
It still drives. There was still a lot of carbon and other inputs that went into making that car. Since I can still drive it, I don't necessarily feel like I need to replace it. Just because that increases my carbon footprint since I'm consuming something else that wasn't made here, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, if I get an Arcimoto someday, that'd be pretty rad. I'd be like,
Yeah.
Eugene.
Yeah.
But, and so, yeah, anyway, Green New Deal. And so, yeah, electric vehicles, right? There's a definite push for that.
You want all city vehicles to be electric, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that'd be shiny. I've been pushing that for a little bit.
We've
and
got some very specific, like giant trucks that do very industrial looking things that I don't understand particularly well. Those I don't know if we can get there all that
we
quickly.
totally can. Cybertruck.
Okay.
Cybertruck.
Yeah.
Cybertruck's power is amazing.
I'm
We don't
hyped
have to
about the
design it
Cybertruck
like that, right?
for sure.
And so, I mean, the thing is, seeing those meter vehicles, the parking patrol folk, switch to electric is rad. Because I've been talking about
The
this a little
MGO
bit, right?
buses with Ride Zero.
I mean, I don't like those necessarily so much because we need to actually be using public transit money that's cutting down carbon footprints to help our arterial communities that are suffering the
so
most
not
from
just
lack
downtown.
of mobility. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Not
no
just
worries.
downtown, sorry. Quicker
Yeah,
way
yeah.
to say it.
Yeah.
But
No, it's good. It's good city lingo. If people look up arterial communities, it's just like the arteries in your veins. Yeah, the bigger, River Road, Coburg Road, West 11th. Yeah.
and so yeah, I mean the idea that we're pushing for more green vehicles is rad. I've been talking about a little bit, like, just even, wow. I mean, 'cause I was at Lane Community College, right?
Yeah.
The way I was able to talk as well as I do now, I
Okay.
was very, very introverted.
Okay.
But I started, actually, sorry y'all to offend anyone, I started with Osberg.
Okay.
Started with Osberg and yeah, I mean,
OSPIRG.
the Oregon Student Public Interest Research Group. I was their hunger and homelessness campaign coordinator.
Okay.
Also a board member of them, right? Mm-hmm. But the best way I was able to engage folk was by, like, drinking a Rockstar, going out and talking to the bus stop, right?
Okay.
Like, hey, how y'all doing? Like, you
Yeah,
should
yeah.
check this out. This is really important, right?
Yeah, yeah.
No matter what campaign it was, because like, it was all pretty important, right?
Right.
And so yeah, it was very helpful. But then being able to go and talk like that, right? As an elected representative of students, as stakeholders at Lane Community College,
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that I was representing their interest in being able to not only feel like they had a voice,
Yes.
but that there was an out for them, even if they didn't want to go to a 4-year after that, right?
Right on.
Like I
I believe in that very ardently.
Yeah, and so like I was trying to talk with folks out there to convert vehicles over to biodiesel, right? Mm-hmm. Because Sequential is located right up there.
Okay.
And they're a Oregon-based biodiesel company that buys feedstock for their biofuel from Oregon farmers.
Yeah.
And so then we would create the system, right?
Yeah.
Where not only would
That's
there
kind of in
suddenly be
that
demand and shit.
Goshen area, right? Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, and so that it was hard just because there's a lot of pushback against the cars that people were driving, just because of the acidity of bioethanol. Mm-hmm. And so that was something that we couldn't find funding to actually do the full-on upgrades, right? Mm-hmm. To make that something that could be like a program out there. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, through that, I'm like, wow, we just installed these new solar panels up on top of the thingy, right? That parking structure is huge.
It's got a pretty cool green roof.
Let's slap some more solar panels on everything, right? Yeah.
Expensive.
Not really. The price is going down huge.
Okay.
And then when we create a solar panel and battery factory in the old Hynix plant with state partners and other folks interested in actually investing and moving forward with a new Green Deal, right? Like, here is a place to invest and move forward. It's got shipping, clean rooms, manufacturing.
Right.
And people are talking about the new Green Deal, I think, right? And
Green New Deal, yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
That happens.
And I mean, yeah.
Do you ever feel a little bit of dissonance in that? As two Asian Americans
Then
here,
we slap solar panels on everything, and then create microgrids at community centers, and then also LTD park and rides that then have EV plugs.
swag.
Because we already know that they're located.
We need a fast charger in
community
town.
shit.
We don't have it. I obviously drive one, so it's like a fast charger isn't even like the fastest thing ever. It takes 30 to 40 minutes to fill up my whole battery. But the other fastest chargers that we have in town are these level 2 chargers that take 3 or 4 hours, and they tend to be tucked away in low visibility areas. We need to have high visibility, fast chargers, DC power converted outside of the car, go straight into the car, for people that are traveling through Eugene. There's Veneta has one, Springfield has one, but we don't have one in Eugene. Yep. Salem has about 8. I was saying for a while they have 6.
I saw that loop
it's
that
more like
Elon
8.
Musk was trying to throw down to make sure that his Teslas would have that cross-country capability. Because, I mean, as Lex Luthorian as he might be, right?
Yeah.
Like, the fact that he doesn't want to bring that whole electrical revolution to the people, right? Is pretty rad and commendable.
Right.
Admittedly, the financial barrier of capital, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Makes it hard to approach, but that's why we need to build batteries here.
I love it.
But Asians.
So one thing I've told people is I want to ask like political folks about music, and I want to ask musical folks about politics. And so, music, right? There's the question. But really, live music in Eugene is a deeply important part of our community, and I want to see more of it. I personally want to see live music, at least a little bit of it, at every city council meeting. I think that would be really fun and inviting. And people are like, why is that necessary? I'm like, look at communities that have understood, schools, indigenous communities understand that, like, you can bring live music into governmental spaces where decisions are being made, and it's just better. It's just better, and it affirms the value of something that we like to brag about and talk about. Oh, Eugene, such a great place for artists. Yeah, how so? Why is it that the most recent mayor's art show, you look around, there's one painting of a person of color in the far back corner, and everything else, it's kind of, there's so much classism and racism in the world of high art. Come on.
One way I want to remove that barrier, right, is investing in some of the vacant spaces that we might have with a fund generated off of lodging tax for the upcoming track trials. Because there's going to be a lot of money coming in, right, as we were talking about earlier.
Right.
And these spaces would be reservable.
I sure hope that we've got COVID under control for that shit to happen.
Well, that's why we're on lockdown till the schools got shut down till April 28th, man.
Yeah, Governor Brown pushed that.
That's fucking
hectic. To April 28th.
I got a 10-year-old, right? I already do I already do most of the homework with them anyway, right? Mm-hmm. So, I've already got a good grasp on Common Core and all that stuff. The Learn Zillion pedagogy is very annoying because they're trying to teach different models that I never learned, right?
Okay.
About math and whatnot. But it was okay. I want to make sure that he can integrate into the public schooling pedagogy that he is currently under. But I want to make sure that he's learning what he needs to learn too, right?
Yeah.
Digression aside, the idea of creating those spaces, right, off that fund, or maybe partnering with existing spaces and then subsidizing them, right? Because most folks that are artists or even have studios generally aren't, they don't talk about their day job.
Right.
Right? They don't talk about their day job.
Yeah.
And so helping subsidize those spaces when they are at their day job would help creativity, remove that prohibitive privilege barrier, and then also bring artists together, right? Have them start talking to each other again. Doing more jams, right?
What's one of the best
live music and shit?
What's one of the best live music experiences you've had, let's say, in Eugene? I could start. Tech 9 always rips it. He is an amazing rapper from Kansas City, and he has got love for Eugene.
Special love, yeah.
Yeah, and he's come to McDonald Theater a bunch of times, and he always shuts shit down.
Oh, man, I don't know. Eugene, I've been here since '96. And so there were a lot of acts that used to roll. I beat you by a year. Yeah. I'm also older than you, though, too. So
I know.
A little bit.
You're 31? I'm 26, right?
Oh, not 31. No, a little older. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Somebody I talked to was definitely 31 recently. What are you, 36?
A little older.
Okay, right on.
38.
Cool.
I turned 38 in March, yeah. It's freaking hectic.
That explains why you've got all this great experience.
Some knowledge, too, yeah.
Yeah.
Along the way and shit. And just seeing how pieces can fit together.
Yeah.
Because I've seen a lot of pieces of Eugene, y'all.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have.
So, but yeah, and so one of the, it was the first big act I think I saw in Eugene was Better Than Ezra.
Wow, that's cool.
They were at the Wow Hall.
Oh my gosh, fuck yeah. Wow Hall has had so many awesome artists.
Yeah, and so that was pretty epic, right? Just because wow, this is a big band, and the whole Schoolhouse Rock album just came out, right?
Okay.
Junction, what's your function? Looking at the words and phrases and thoughts, yeah. And so, it was epic, right?
Or if you're a Family Guy, you say, Vagina Junction, what's your I'm not going to finish it. I'm really not.
But yeah,
as I think about that, I'm like, okay, our electability is going to drop if I finish that song.
That show was huge.
Because people's bodies have far more function than just reproduction.
Yeah, I don't do Family Guy much, y'all. Sorry. I can't quite connect on that.
This podcast is over. It's been a pleasure. No, I do love Family Guy. I do love it.
I'm a sucker right now for all those CW fucking hero shows, right?
Okay.
As silly as those stories are, right?
Okay.
I'm watching some soap operas, but they got superheroes, man. Metahumans. It's freaking rad, right? That is my language.
There you go.
While I was not the most avid DC kid growing up, right? Still, turn on my TV.
Good for you, Doc.
That's really cool. But I mean, I don't know, man. Like Beck, he played at the EMU ballroom right after Devil's
Really?
Haircut came out.
I
We
got
were
a
so
devil's
close to the
haircut.
stage.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about the Wow
That's
Hall,
sick.
too. We were so
Dude.
close to the stage. And then
Artists
MC Chris, you
love
remember
playing.
MC Chris?
Of course I,
Yeah,
yeah.
shit, yeah. Do you remember?
That guy loves his fans.
He went to, that first show to Transformers.
Okay.
He took that Wow Hall.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I knew I would get you hype if we talk music.
Shit.
I knew I would get you hype.
And I mean, then they might be Giants' first show. I'm
Right.
also a nerd and geek,
Well,
right?
here's
They
a
had
lane
other-
that, you know,
God,
you're
I'm
not
fucking rad.
maybe a country person. I love country music. Garth Brooks came and played at Autzen Stadium, and we had spillover crowd from people on the outside, and he was just shrieking between songs. He was like, because everybody was so happy to see him. Granted, maybe not a lot of Eugenians, or maybe a lot of them, but like, you know, people from all around come to see Garth Brooks at
No, a lot
Autzen
of
Stadium.
Eugenians. We
Yeah.
just don't see him.
Okay.
We just don't see him normally.
And, you know, fucking great. And he just being like, are you guys going to do this the whole night? Oh, my Lord. You know, because people were just so hyped to see him. And that's what I love about Eugene, is that it's a market where people get love. I've seen shows at Madison Square Garden when I was living in New York and grad school at Columbia, and it's just, people are, of course they're excited because it's an arena show, but they are so used to it. People are used to seeing these A-list celebrities and walking around, you know, Midtown and the Phi Dai and everywhere. So it's like, in Eugene, I love that people all
right
know
outside
when someone huge is coming to the Holt or the Cuthbert or even McDonald Theater. People know, and they get excited about it. And I've loved seeing more shows happening at Autzen.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, right now, so you were talking about live music being such a huge thing.
Yeah.
Sessions Music Hall is working
Sure.
with some folks to broadcast live music.
Really?
During this COVID-19 shutdown.
Oh, I heard.
Ooh.
I heard.
So Sessions Music Hall here in Eugene, yeah?
City Manager Maderi was talking at the emergency meeting yesterday about Holt Center was thinking about doing that. I didn't know that Sessions was going to do that.
They've I can't remember if they started
Because
already.
my friend
or
Dylan and I
tonight.
he was like making fun of it, and he was just like, I was just thinking like, okay, what's the point of it being at the Holt Center if no one's there? The Holt Center is like a communal gathering space that's beautiful, but literally it could just be in a living room if the point of it is that it's being broadcast. But for Sessions to do it, I think that sounds awesome.
Well, I mean, because
I've been on that stage with B.o.B.
B.o.B?
B.o.B, the rapper that got headlines for supporting Flat Earth. He made a song called Flatline, dissing Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist. I love seeing your face when I talk about this. But yeah, dude, I saw his show and he's amazing. He's dope. Been a fan of him since 2010. Don't diss.
He loves
Nothing on You featuring Bruno Mars is a great fucking song. The whole Strange Clouds album.
Featuring Bruno.
Get out of my face.
Featuring what?
Yeah,
he
dude.
featured Bruno Mars?
Yeah,
Flat
damn right.
Earthing?
Yeah.
What?
The song was not about flat Earth.
Okay.
Gosh, you're so intolerant.
I am because I am so grateful that we have the breadth and depth of human knowledge at our fingertips, right? The fact that folk isolate what they are listening or looking at just so that it matches their bias is something that is completely encouraged by our current political structure, especially by allowing them to consolidate so much mainstream media, right? And so
Sure.
that's the thing. Thinking
Right.
about like, okay,
I don't know if Register Guard's going to endorse me because I've talked so much shit about mainstream corporate media, and I think that they're not the worst of the worst, but it's fucking Gatehouse, man. Dallas, Texas is where we're sending our money when we subscribe to them.
well, that's the problem with the consolidation.
Mm-hmm.
KEV9 and KVAL are
Owned by Sinclair.
like, wait,
Isn't
really?
it KMTR also?
Oh, no, KMTR is still separate.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know. It's been a while since I looked at it.
All
'cause I'm
right.
like
Sure.
upset. I don't want to make myself
That's
more
why I
upset,
love
right?
podcasts. You get deep into it. None of
Yeah.
those motherfuckers are listening to this at this point, so we could say anything.
Oh
As
no!
if-
Don't say that! Don't say that! Don't say
It
that!
doesn't make it.
Yeah.
You know, it's it's interesting. I can see the analytics, so I know that a couple people do really watch all the way through, but that could just mean they leave it on, etc.
In the background, like a podcast, which is what we need to do for city council meetings, because something interesting comes up, then go, oh, well, rewind.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
There you go.
again, like right now, I've not been listening to too much music, right? Oh my gosh, it's 5:10.
It is 5:10.
How long have we been doing this?
We've been doing this for an hour and 45 minutes and 16 seconds, 17 seconds, 18 seconds. And Matthew Yook, what a pleasure it's been. Unless you have anything else you want to talk about, I do want to ask you the titular question of the show.
Uh-oh.
What's one way we could all be less stupid?
Listening to other people.
You're not the first person to say that.
We can't think that. I mean, I can't say what we can't think, because we all think what we think, right?
Okay.
You can't thought police. We've got to understand that even if we think it, other folk don't. And so figuring out where people can meet, where we can agree on what needs to happen or what is happening, is the best way to go about it. Which is why I like my intolerance of flat Earth, right? Like,
I mean, you just go to Florence, look at the coast, you will see that it's got a mild curvature. So you have to assume that curvature continues and that we are on a sphere. Also, yeah.
and so, I mean, that's why, like, I get these pained expressions, right? Because, like, I understand that people have their own beliefs.
Right.
I want to respect their beliefs. But if they're gonna just remain willfully is very judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
And which is why I don't want to say ignorance is a judgmental thing, right?
Okay.
Ignorance is me saying, you've been presented with these facts and this evidence. While they might not fit your bias, are you actually trying to listen to them? Or are you just trying to prove them wrong? I'm that reactionary, I'm right. That reactionary, I'm being attacked. And so,
Well, I think it's a real struggle when, okay, yes, scientific data and facts are very, very, very important, right? But people
Evidence.
on the left, I will say, will share things that are supposedly credible, and then you find out later that, okay, is CNN credible? Yes, but yes, if you're on the left, but no, if you're on the right.
well, no, they're biased.
Yeah, biased indeed.
Which is the thing. Like, my credible news sources I go to are
Are
Democracy Now!
Okay.
And Counterspin.
Okay.
Along with
I've
other
never heard of that, but I saw
KPFA.
Democracy Now! On your phone.
Along
My
with
dad's
other
met Amy
KPFA
Goodman.
videos.
Amy Goodman rocks.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, like, I go mainly for sources that interview people that are actually working on the front lines.
Cool.
Interview professors that have
That's
studied it, as opposed to pundits and politicians
Sure.
platforming.
I
Which
mean,
is the problem of
there's a deep
mainstream media,
incentive right there
The problem of
to
CNN and shit.
oversimplify.
And so, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
which is why, like, looking for those independent news sources that actually interview the people doing that work.
That's dope.
The Zinnian, right?
Yeah.
Zinnian fucking motive of people's history,
I like
people's
that.
narrative and shit.
I like that.
Like,
A people's history of Eugene, Oregon. That's what this was.
that's what this campaign's about.
Yeah,
that's
dog.
what our campaigns are about.
Thank you
Fucking people's
for
history is-
for taking the time to sit down with me, welcoming me here, keeping my 2 bags of wontons frozen in the fridge I just got from motherfucking Costco. Let's go. I don't know why I keep doing this, but I really like doing this, so it's dope. And I
Because
just talked a lot on this episode about acronyms, and I just get this high energy vibe when I'm with you, dog. Thank you, and I'll see you more on the campaign trail. We'll try to do more things to make candidate forum-like opportunities happen, right? Because so much stuff's getting canceled because of COVID.
For sure, there's a deep dive in some emails I need to write earlier today.
Let's do it, man.
But like,
Write your emails.
we need to do some music shit too, sometime.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. All right.
Some musical mayoral mishaps.
3M.
Mashups. Oh, melodiousness.
Take it easy, y'all. Good stuff. An hour and 49 minutes.
Pedantic. I didn't mention that, right?
Yes, you did.
Good lord. I'm sorry, man.